Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Cloud Talk Live. My name is Jeff DeVerter, and I'm excited that you're here for another episode of Cloud Talk Live. Well, it's another Tuesday. It's another chance to get together and have a conversation around all things technology. Got a great episode for you guys today. Again, my name is Jeff DeVerter, and I'm excited that you're here with us today. So welcome to Cloud Talk Live. All the normal rules apply. Would love for you to introduce yourselves. Tell us who you are. Tell us where you are in the world. So use your comments, whatever platform you're on. I'm quite positive there's a comment section, so go ahead and use it. If you want to get a note over to us, and maybe something a little more long form, well, feel free to send us an email at solve@Rackspace. Now, Solve is Rackspace's thought leadership program. In fact, if you were to go over to rackspace.com/solve, you would be greeted with a bevy of incredible content. But the one thing you won't find there is somebody trying to sell you something other than give you a lot of great information. Folks, if we're not already best friends over on the LinkedIns, I spend a fair amount of time over there. It's another great way to get a hold of me, and so feel free to reach out and connect. I would love to get to know you there. Send me a note, and what the heck just popped up on my screen over here? Cool. All right. Why is that happening? All right, and let's move on. Later. Cool. All right, there we go. All right, so we also have a podcast around here. It is called Cloud Talk, not Cloud Talk Live, but Cloud Talk. So you can find it anywhere where you find podcasts, over in Apple, or Google Play, or Spotify, all the places. And latest episode is out right now. You can see Justin Cuss up there. We're talking about modern operations. So what does it look like to manage workloads in this new modern world, not just in a public cloud, but maybe even in a modern private cloud. And so this is a new episode of the CTO Roundtable. We've got Justin Cuss in there. We've got Travis Fuentes in there, and Simon Bennett as well. Also, I was just talking to the guys before we started the program. I have a new article over, and we're going to talk about this a little bit today, over on LinkedIn, and it's my creator coworker, AI. And I talk about what it takes to create some of this content and the analysis between what it would take to do it with all the AI tools that I use today, as opposed to with just plain old human peoples in the past. And by the way, the past just means about a year or two ago, not all that long ago. So it's an interesting study, time study, and if you haven't already seen it, love for you to go check that out. You can find it by just heading over to that LinkedIn profile of mine. All right, so as we get ready to get started here, if you've seen the chat before in the title in here, you know that what we're going to talk about today is a lot of stuff from the Build conference, Microsoft Build conference. And as you can imagine, there was all kinds of AI things there. And there's a lot of conversations that I have on a daily basis with IT decision makers all around the world, with business leaders. And the conversation of AI, should they use it, should they not, how will they use it, these sorts of things. And as we move into the rest of the morning, I want to draw the analogy to a little something that happened with me over the weekend. Now, if you've been following here for any amount of time, you know that I own a little bit of property outside of San Antonio, Texas. In fact, it's where I am this morning. I spent a fair amount of time out here. It's 60 acres, which takes a little bit of management. And up until now, it's been pretty much, me and a chainsaw or a shovel and a pickaxe. Well, take a look at not that. Take a look at that. That happened this weekend. That's right. I got a little extra mechanized help. In fact, if we go back in time and we look at any time machinery came along to help humans, there was a lot of concern that came along with the people who used to do the job, whether it was people who made buggy whips for vehicles, or whether it was, let's try to get me back on the screen here. There we go. For people, or whether it was the people who sewed or did knitting in old Europe. There's all sorts of different examples, time and time again, that sometimes even got violent as to how much machinery would be used. But I'm here to say that AI is that latest batch of transformative technology that's here to make our lives just a little bit better. And to dig into that conversation today, I've got a couple of guests who are going to join me. First is Justin Snyder. You know Justin. He's been around a few times. He is one of our fancy architects here, does all things in the Microsoft space. And then a new face to you all, and that's Craig Fretwell joining us from the UK. Craig is a cybersecurity strategist, but also a three-time Microsoft MVP. So let's bring the team up on stage. Folks, I'm going to remind you, we have been having some challenges with our software here that connects into LinkedIn and YouTube. But if you have any questions or comments, again, I'd love for you to introduce yourselves. Tell us who you are. Tell us where you are. So Justin, Craig, welcome to Cloud Talk. Glad that you're here.
Thanks for having me on again.
You bet. I gave Craig a hard time before he showed up, and I told him he had to have a 15-minute dialogue prepared and presentation, and the eyes about popped out of his head. But Craig, we are glad that you're here. I'd love for you to introduce yourselves. I already mentioned you're a three-time MVP. Tell us a little bit about your background and what makes you so fancy.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Jeff. So I've been at Rackspace for about 2 months now. Absolutely loving it. From the moment I joined, I got that kind of, that warm, fuzzy feeling. You walk into your mom's house, you just baked like a nice batch of cookies, you take a bite, and it's like getting a big cozy hug. You could say Rackspace is baking some seriously good vibes. I'm a 3 times MVP. I'm a 3 times MVP. I've been in cybersecurity for 12 years, 13 years now. Although I look, a lot younger than the amount it's taken off my life. But yeah, I've worked at multiple companies here at Rackspace. I'm obviously a pre-sales senior security architect. And I'm not sure if I mentioned it, but I'm also a 3 times MVP. So yeah, once again, thank you so much for having me on the show.
You bet. There's a strong analogy I like to think between the MVP community and the Racker culture, and that really is, I boil it down to the fact that somebody who's certified is a certified smart person, but somebody who is an MVP is somebody who has proven that they have the technology knowledge and the wisdom to do the things, but they also love to share it. So, and I think that really personifies not only the MVP culture, but of course the Racker culture as well. Well, folks, we're here to talk about, there were a few announcements, a few things happened last week over at Build, and there has been an awful lot of press in and around the Microsoft CoPilot PCs. So we're now seeing that fancy word CoPilot showing up in hardware. Justin, I think you're pretty excited about this from the conversations we've had.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. I think with a lot of the announcements this month from all of the hyperscalers, Microsoft really came in with Microsoft Build and announced a lot of tool sets available as Microsoft Build is focused on towards the developer, giving IDEs, developer tools, all of that to the team. But like you said, Jeff, CoPilot PCs, not just CoPilot in our applications, but CoPilot built into the tool sets, built into the devices that we have today. I think we talked about a couple of the really, really crazy examples in terms of being able to recall and go back through what work you were doing or what meetings you were doing. Yeah. Even from a personal perspective, there was videos of someone playing Minecraft in AI and the CoPilot actually walking them through how to play or how to do something in Minecraft while they're playing live. Really, and if you just think about that, you can begin to understand that the possibilities are endless. They already were with like what you could see happening, but more and more you're seeing real practical ways that it's being used that help us really see all the other ways that we could be using it to really revolutionize how we work, right? Like you have your tractor and you revolutionize the work you're doing, but now all of the ways now that it's getting down to the device, it's helping us see the different ways it can revolutionize how we work.
Indeed, and I think about 3 seconds after the announcement happened, there was a lot of concern around the security of it. Ooh, they're going to watch what I'm doing. What about the enterprise? Do we want people paying attention to that? Craig, you're a security guy. Been a security guy for a little while. What are your thoughts on all of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the press have really blown this out of proportion, right? I mean, as Justin mentioned, the Minecraft thing, that blew my mind when I saw that. I'm a gamer myself. I play a lot of video games, Fortnite, Apex, X Defiant, right? So if I'm playing that game and I say to Copilot, hey, notify me if there's like an enemy in front of me, or, there's someone over there, if I can't see them, or let me know when I need to reload or something like that. Is that going to give me competitive edge? And whilst, this is happening, it's obviously going to put a lot of amount of stress on the computer as well. Microsoft say that the snapshots are stored locally. Again, this might be an issue for some people. I'm not pretty sure they're going to be encrypted, right? But the whole security aspect of this is, if you've got OneDrive on your PC as well, and you've got your secure vault or a password manager, is it going to be able to see that? Is it going to be able to see your passport, some of your pictures? Obviously, Microsoft doesn't have full access to these snapshots or the recall. It doesn't go into the cloud. It all stays local, but the content searching perspectives, like, if you go private mode, like in private browser, and you can restrict it as well. So it's not, for keepsake, right? It's not going to take over the world. But for me personally, with an AI assistant having these features of doing X, Y, and Z, honestly, I would love it if it upped my productivity. But again, it does come with that level of risk. But it's the same with anything. And the press calling this a privacy nightmare is it's kind of crazy. But innovation for artificial intelligence is inevitable.
That's right. And I think you're making a really good point in there as well, and that is there's just not one master's, and we know you can turn it off, but there's not just one master switch, where am I in the camera, that you think about the old 1940s movies where they the big electrical switch to turn the whole thing off. It's just not an on or off. There is an on or off. But there's degrees of that. Do you want it to pay attention to this, to that? Do you have areas that are off limits? Is it like when you use bing.com/chat and you're using, AI inside of there, and you're uploading a picture to do a thing with, and it's blurring the faces? There's a lot we still don't know, and we have to assume a lot of those controls are in place as well. And from a video game perspective, and I love the analogy or the example that they showed with Minecraft. And Craig, you're like, hey, warn me if somebody's within X amount of whatever who's going to come in and blow my head off.
Yeah,
it feels like we're getting an awful close to that first round of Halo that we saw in the Cortana chip that's in there, and she's telling you all the things.
Yep.
Does it feel like we're almost there? It feels like we're almost there to me.
We're not. I think we're pretty close. I mean, what I would like to do. I mean, I'm definitely going to get one of these PCs.
100%.
And the productivity aspect is, I could be like, hey, CoPilot, schedule a meeting with my client X for next Friday around lunchtime. Check my calendar, make sure I'm free, and let's set the meeting at this sushi restaurant I checked out like a couple of weeks ago, and then make the reservation through Open Table. For this to work efficiently, obviously CoPilot's going to need access to certain data and application, parts and stuff like that. But again, it's how much data do you want to give it? Like you say, Jeff, you can turn bits and pieces on and off.
Yeah. And again, there's still a lot we don't know because they don't release. We won't have them in our greedy little hands until the beginning of June, I think, is when they first start to show up. But Justin, a question for you. How does all this start to work? Does it get better when there's an outage? Because we're coming off an outage last week of the whole environment. Or because it's baked into the PC, do I stay alive? I wonder if these are some of the things we know now, or do we have to wait?
It's a good question. I think the outage, and we have outages with everything. I think you see it in Office 365. You see it in other hyperscalers. It does happen. You obviously try to minimize the amount as possible, v5.9s, 4.9s, what have you. But it's important. I think what outages show really effectively is like you don't realize what you had until you lost it, right? And so all of us who have been using it and using it in our workflow expecting it to be there, were sort of confronted with that reality of, hey, this service can go down and you can lose that productivity very quickly now. But I think, again, like I said, it showed us that value. It showed, hey, this does help us save a lot of time. It does help us do more. Us do more at a higher quality. But like with everything, it's important for it to be reliable and it to be sustainable. With everything, because it is a cloud service, because there's a lot of investment in this, it's growing really rapidly. So as they build the plane, as they fly, right, there's going to be some hiccups. But with everything in Microsoft, it's iterative now. So it gets better, it gets more reliable, it gets more sustainable. They add more features, they add more security controls. It just always evolves from there, sort of 1% better all the way. And really, where it's at right now, it really it excites me because if it's just going to get better from here, like if you look at what Office 365 was or VPOS was 10 years ago, I think now,
yeah.
and what it is today, like just think of that with the CoPilot technology and generative AI technologies, and just think of that type of growth. And it will be really, really amazing.
So we look at this as individuals, whether it's a gamer or whether it is helping us be more productive at the things that we do on our own computers in our own lives, individual jobs. But as companies start to think about how to do this effectively, the information architecture, having an appropriate information architecture, was a topic of it and of a build, and that is a topic that's been around for a while, but there hasn't been that strong catalyst. I come out of this SharePoint space, and we beat that drum 10 years ago about an information architecture so that those sites and the content would be in a structure that was usable. But now that we've got AI that is, I'll call it infiltrated, that has read, that is aware of all that content, all the more important to have an effective information architecture. Justin, any announcements or things last week that are going to help with that?
So I think not necessarily a lot of announcements, both for CoPilot and SharePoint and CoPilot and other applications. But I think just to note on like what you said about it being very important, information architecture, I think with the permissions, CoPilot now can synthesize what basically any user has access to in a couple of seconds, right? So now it's about, like you said, organizations are now actually not concerning themselves, they're paying attention to what people have access to, right? I think there's so many situations where you go into in organizations that had SharePoint sites or data available to everyone, but not really understanding what is actually available to everyone, that then CoPilot can then synthesize for users. So if you get someone that's compromising an account, they can very easily get access to the information. But at the same time, with all of that information, it's also really important that you give it clean and good information. So if you have duplicate information, or maybe you have, for example, a plan or report that gives details or quantitative like or decision-making information, and you have multiple copies over the years, and you have one place in one site and one place in another site, if you don't effectively clean up that data and delete the ones that are no longer accurate, when you prompt CoPilot, it can give you the wrong answer because that data is there. So it's really important not only to secure your data, but also to make sure it's effectively governed and that the content is managed and the information architecture is organized, so you don't have CoPilot basically hallucinating because what information it has is inaccurate, and you, like you said, you're not architecting your information effectively. Talked a lot about this at Microsoft 365 Con. Again, it's really important. It sort of is that foundation that you build everything else on. And like you said, we found customers care about it a lot more because of the security. But the second piece of it is it's also really important to care about for the effectiveness of CoPilot.
Right. So obscurity becomes a model that really doesn't work anymore. One of my earliest memories in the SharePoint space, like 2004. I mean, this is WSS, if you guys remember that back that far. And we had sent it loose on a file share. And all of a sudden, something that this financial services firm I was working for was really concerned about, because they didn't allow, going up and down Active Directory. That was even what it was called then. But it exposed inside of a folder that was nestled somewhere what the organizational structure of the company was, and that made a lot of people mad that internal employees could see that, because that was something that through obscurity they were able to hide before and not make visible. So Craig, information architecture, security, people, how about some tips? What do they need to be thinking about? How do we approach this now in preparation for maybe a company-wide deployment of this?
Yeah, definitely. I think with M365 for CoPilot, right, you've got endless possibilities. You've got a lot of productivity going on there. But from an example from a friend of mine who works at a different company, won't name names, obviously, but they turned it on as like a trial license, and straight away he types in there and he says, show me performance and salary reviews, and he sees his entire team. Like, he's not meant to have access to this, right? So straight away there's an identity risk right there as well. And it's not just identity risk based, it's also endpoint based and data based, as Justin mentioned. Like, data stored everywhere, right? It's in Teams, it's in SharePoint, it's in OneDrive, it's in on premise, it's on an SMB file share, that people might not know that they have access to this data. And with a simple search, when you enable CoPilot and it has that funnel to go on there and hit the graph and go straight behind the scenes, they're going to have access to this data and they're going to take advantage of that. But at the same time, CoPilot also does respect its boundaries. So if you say, oh, I want to see performance reviews from, X, Y, and Z, it won't just say, you don't got access to that. It'll say, I cannot find that information. So it does have that like level of respect. But again, even if you're on an outdated device, that device could be at risk because, it could have vulnerabilities. It may not be patched. It may not be up to date. And if you have CoPilot, again, that can be exploited. So there's a lot of things to consider, obviously, across data, endpoint, and identity.
Justin, another update. There's some stuff on Studio that was updated as well. Talk to us about that a little bit.
Yeah, so a lot of changes there. They've rebranded, even though it's the same. It's using the same backbone for connectors. They've rebranded the connectors as CoPilot connectors. Okay. They've added a lot of IDE support in for CoPilot Studio as well, so you can a little bit more, not just no code, but a little bit low code and code development. Also in CoPilot Studio. Oh, what else have they added? I mean, because it's changing so much, they've added a lot. They added in the capability of integrating with, I think, devices now in like planning for the CoPilot PC deployment and integrating with other like first-party Copilots. Really, again, so many different things in terms of being able to not only just have CoPilot as today, but customize it to someone's use case, and not only customize it to someone's use case, but also expose it in other places that aren't just the apps we know in Microsoft 365, in other hyperscalers, in custom applications, in really exposing the power that has for our corporate data and corporate employees and in our work and our productivity, but for other solutions.
Yeah. So Craig, on CoPilot Studio, anything that you're seeing there on the security side, or different ways that the companies are integrating with that? I mean, CoPilot, I mean, it's a term, it's never going away now. It is the future. I mean, it's baked into hardware now, so I mean, you can't just erase that in code. But how are we also helping on the security side?
Yeah, I mean, I think the press are kind of giving some of this AI stuff a little bit of a bad rap. The futuristic capabilities in AI. It's going to happen. It's inevitable. But if you're too hesitant to let it access certain parts of the data, you'll never be able to have that full functionality of these products or services. That's and right. At the same time, you've got to have a set of boundaries around that. And obviously, Microsoft have the responsible AI, which covers various different areas. But again, within your organization, you need to adopt these security principles as well. It's the same when Microsoft first did Azure Cloud. So many people expressed their concerns that Microsoft could see your data, and organizations didn't like the fact that they couldn't physically see a server. And now entire companies are literally in the cloud as a full like SaaS service company. Yeah. They don't have servers in their office anymore. So yes, it's a risk, but it's about how you handle that risk with being mindful of the information and data and applications, that you can give it. And as time moves on, you can be sure that there's going to be a lot more innovation, a lot more updates. And if anyone has seen the film Iron Man, we want our own Jarvis. Like I'd love my own Jarvis to go tell me to, I just ask it something. Hey, Jarvis, go do this. Yep, no worries.
Done.
Yeah. Done. Yeah, that's it. Here you go. Here's a copy.
Well, it's it goes back to whether it's Jarvis, whether it is the earliest Cortana in Halo. It ultimately is this capability to help us be better, stronger, faster, more efficient at what we do, less error prone. I love the fact that I don't I still can't spell, but my documents do not reflect that like they used to. I mean, just to get back to a very basic type of a thing. I mean, all of that really does matter, and it does make a big difference, and is so helpful. And again, I'll go back to that analogy, that very real world example last week, and just to walk through real quick what that would be is I create these podcasts, these audio podcasts, and we now record video with the podcast. And so there's the editing process of that. There is sometimes I'll say or how do I get rid of those? I want to sound more intelligent, not just in the words that I'm typing, but in the words that I'm saying. All of this happening through AI, all of this happening and being edited in a pretty cohesive way. And quite frankly, as I did that work, I found some inefficiencies that still exist inside of there. There's some tool consolidation that can happen. I bet I can get another couple of hours pulled out of the process. And that gets exciting about our jobs. I mean, you can imagine whether you're in a security space looking for how can you make the infrastructure better, or on a productivity space, how can I make my people more efficient at the things they do. These are good things. These are good things. Justin, here at Rackspace, we have a process to help companies get started in this space. Why don't you tell us about that? And I think there might be a QR code that's going to show up somewhere.
Yeah, thank you so much. So our two-step flight plan, it's really amazing. It's in partnership with Microsoft. First, the assessment with Microsoft that helps our customers understand where they are when it comes to CoPilot readiness, what they need to do to get there, and then also helps them develop not only those technical pieces, but also the understanding of the personas and those use cases of, hey, here's how you actually could use CoPilot to find those efficiencies in your days, right? I think a lot of organizations, and we're seeing more rationalization and more ability to see what it can do, but customers are trying to understand, okay, how do I actually use it in my job, in my industry? The assessment really helps us do that. And then a second piece delivered by Rackspace is taking that assessment that you get full output and reports from, in helping actually make those changes happen. So that gives you the recommendations, the pre-flight checks from us help you make those changes from a security perspective, from a data governance and information architecture perspective, from a user readiness and preparedness perspective, making sure that, hey, you have this plan, let's actually put it in place. And we're finding a lot of success with those two steps, understanding the plan and assessing that, and then two, executing on that plan that we put together.
That sounds great. All right, folks. Thank you so much for spending some time with us here this morning. Craig, so glad that you are here. You're gonna be invited back. I'd love for you to come back and spend some time with us here on the program.
Anytime, Jeff. Thank you.
You bet. And Justin, always a wealth of information. Enjoy spending time with you as well. Have a great day, gentlemen.
You as well.
Folks, thank you so much for being with us here on the program today. And just a reminder, if you want to head over to rackspace.com/solve, and in just a minute, theoretically, that's going to show up on the screen. You'll be able to get information, all kinds of great stuff, whether it's blog articles, whether it is links to older recordings of these, the podcast as well. There's also the white paper for the research that we did around data NI, which has been extremely well received. We did our Solve Summit on that just about 3 weeks or so ago. And you can find links to all of that inside of there and download that white paper. Also, the latest podcast is now available that deals with modern operations. You can find that by subscribing to the podcast Cloud Talk, any place that you find your podcasts. All right, everybody. My name is Jeff DeVerter. I'm so glad you spent some time with us here this morning. We're back next week with another episode of Cloud Talk Live. Have a great day, everyone.